Hey, it is your buddy, Peace and Harmony with you here today. Much love going out to all the beautiful empowered harmonizers. We are zooming in and focusing in a little bit more in depth in terms of understanding narcissistic malignant self-love. Narcissists have a pathological sense of self-importance. It gives them this sort of ability to feel cold, callous, sort of have a domineering aspect over others, what you might consider a dominance bond. And they will seek out to exploit others, basically meaning not only take advantage of them, take supply, resources, time, things of that nature, but also utilize a sense of boundary violation to sort of assume, and help themselves to others, really with a cold insensitivity. And how does this, how do they work through this? How does this happen without people acknowledging this? How does this occur and really develop into a narcissistic, malignant self-love? Really, they are falling in love with themselves. They are in love with themselves. In other words, these are the people who love themselves but not others. In other words, they are, basically the ones who are kissing themselves in the mirror. They think that they are beautiful, handsome, talented, smart, deserving of all sorts of special treatment, getting off the hook, not having to do the work, not having to tell the truth, not having to compromise or meet in the middle or listen to others. They have a malignant sense of self-importance, but it really becomes a malignant self-love, meaning they're all about, polishing themselves. What was that they used to do? Like, I'm so cool. They're too cool for school, basically. But when we talk about malignant self-love, it's basically because they do not feel the sense of love, appreciation, gratitude for others, the way that you will feel for them. So it's not reciprocated. This can be very damaging, especially in the love bombing phase when you're unaware of their tactics, unaware of their manipulation, and unaware of them in love with themselves. This will have all sorts of implications for relationships. They will violate boundaries and sort of help themselves to others. What does this look like? They'll barge into conversations, where you're talking to somebody and they'll just sort of interject or, just sort of try to get attention and just sort of be disrespectful, not being observing of social norms that, these two people are talking and they're having a private conversation. They can just sort of butt in. They will be disrespectful in very covert ways, or things that you might not feel that you need to call out, but you might just, a lot of people then will feed into this and think that it's normal, and not, have a concern that they were a violation at all. But, when they're in love with themselves, they basically see others as extensions of themselves, meaning unless you can provide me something, unless you can make me look good, unless you can be a source of supply or my posse, and basically making me look good means being on my side, laughing at my jokes, making my dinner, paying my rent bill, taking care of my kids. It can be very sort of vampiric or sort of consuming in nature, meaning you feel that they're sort of consuming you, consuming your goodness, consuming your time, your energy, your thoughtfulness, your consideration, without getting like in return. You might get some, love in return. You might get some acknowledgement and validation. You might get, especially intimacy in the beginning, physical intimacy, shared situations, but then there becomes sort of a splitting of ways. And this is oftentimes fraught with other situations that come up out of being in love with themselves, which becomes then pathological lying and betrayal, feeling that they can pull one over on others and get away with it, not worry about the outcome, not worry about the aftermath. We had a viewer who had confided some details and had advised how this woman basically lied through her teeth, and kept so much hidden from him in the course of their relationship that involved things like therapists, like the law, where you really are expected to follow procedure, follow protocol. You don't lie to the doctor. You don't lie to the lawyer. You don't lie to the judge. This person had no qualms about angrily just sort of doing this and engaging in this while dealing with, a real person, a real kind, considerate, gentle person who actually served our country in a great facet, and really one of the most disciplined branches, getting in physical shape, mental shape, spiritual shape to really fit through that structure. So really, all of those qualities of following authority, serving your country, all these sort of noble ideals and values that run through and through to be able to stick it out, that is the person who she targeted. A good person who has patriotism, who wanted to serve the country, who is disciplined in body, mind, and spirit, follows authority, follows chain of command, protocol. Do you see how there's a diametric opposite of this individual with whom she targeted? There are certain sacred places that you don't lie. You will be on, a bad list. You will have a record. You will have a criminal record. You will have a police report from these people, male or female. It's oftentimes excruciating pain and really mind games that they put these people through, whom they are trying to, they're trying to quote unquote be in a marriage or in love with. When you find out it doesn't feel like they're really in love with you at all. If you love me, you would, obviously be honest, keep me in the loop, communicate with me, not shut me out, not cold shoulder me, not just, minimize and just sort of laugh in scorn, just sort of that scornful laugh where they're sort of act like they're laughing at you, but they're laughing, but they're sort of laughing at you, shaking their head on you and saying, you're incredible, with just this sort of piercing despise or something of that nature because you are in the truth. They hate the truth. That is the problem. When we talk about malignant self-love, the narcissist doesn't understand that they're part of the problem. They don't have the humility, the humbleness. They are very insecure about this. They don't oftentimes have, just sort of religious obedience or obedience to a divine order or a divine power. They just are sort of, if they do, it might be just as a place to scope out and meet people and target others. And that other individual, I feel, is definitely more in the psychopathic end of things, because the degree of coldness and callousness and fearlessness and not being stressed by the number of relationships that she was having, affairs and cheating on this individual behind his back, most women could not stomach. I mean, they physiologically, emotionally wouldn't do that. It's contrary to just sort of female chemistry. Protection of self, health concerns, reputation, not wanting to be perceived as that, but hiding things in phone. But the interesting thing about when people are in love with themselves is they then tend to help themselves to others, help themselves to their books, their belongings, their bank accounts, and will oftentimes, project, and this is very crucial, is that they will project their insecurities, really intense insecurities, real intense flaws, onto others and falsely accuse others that of which they are partaking and committing themselves. So, you're cheating on me. You didn't do this. You didn't do that. Let me see your phone. And, they're just this violation energy, transgressing of boundaries, as if you have no feelings, as if you have no rights, as if you have no self-respect, as if you have no self-love, as if you don't have any place to go to and sort of check this out for a third-party mediator, as if you're just not going to ask for help. The problem with people who are narcissistic is that oftentimes they get people into such that where you chronically feel that you're under scrutiny, that you're constantly on trial with these people, because of the intense judgment that they project out, the mean looks, and they might be laughing at you, shaking their head, that sort of behavior, when it's actually they themselves are the reservoir of the insecurity. It is all within them, but there is a Freudian concept and well-known in psychology called projection. Well, they'll project their insecurities, their wrongdoing, their flaws, their mistakes, their violations, onto others. And they might even say, you're narcissistic. All you care about is yourself. Why, if you cared about me, why wouldn't you show me your phone? Why wouldn't you let me run through all your emails? Because it's a hostile request. It's unfounded, because it's violation, because it's combative, because it does oftentimes not have grounds. And so people oftentimes then get so brainwashed and experience so much cognitive dissonance. Cognitive dissonance meaning they feel one thing but do another, or they see a person do one thing and say another. So there's a betrayal of what they say and then what they do. And it sort of gets a real, just sort of, I know I shouldn't do this, but I'm doing it anyway. Just sort of, a cognitive dissonance, meaning it's discordant. It's like if you were in music, you can hear a harmonious chord and then a discordant chord, like clashing, like conflict. It's a very unpleasant sound. That is, discordant sounds. They don't go together. And so they will then engage in this as well. So when you are, and you might see them just sort of always preening in the mirror. I mean, basically, you think that they're going to make out with themselves. They love themselves, and oftentimes to the exclusion of not really loving others. A narcissist will tell you, as they have confided in me, I love my dog. My dog is always there, but I don't really feel like I love others. That's a good telltale sign right there that they will, feel kinship to something that they can domineer and dominate over, just sort of a dominance bond, a master and his pet. You are not a dog. You are not a pet. You are a human being. You are not somebody's, indentured animal, that domesticated animal that they are, gonna feed once a day and see if there's water and then, shut you away and that's all. And then you're there when you want a pet, that is not a healthy relationship. Unfortunately, a lot of people, get then caught up in so much cognitive dissonance, and that they are uncomfortable asking for help. They don't know, they just know that they don't feel right. It can be very difficult then to put feelings into words. It can be very scary. Fear can hold them back. I can't believe all this is happening to me. A sort of disbelief, a sort of dysphoria, a dissociation, to the point where it's almost like a state of shock. You don't know what to do next. You can't think straight. You can't put one foot in front of the other. This can be very terrifying, to be falsely accused. And I would say in the beginning, when people are in the beginning of that sort of devaluation and discard after the love bombing, they're going through sort of like a fraternal hazing, what you might almost consider like, you've heard of sororities or fraternities hazing people and doing these cruel things to see if they can withstand it. I think a lot of people kind of feel that at this stage in the relationship, they feel that it's kind of like a hazing or an indoctrination ceremony. That if they can get through this, that then everything will be okay, that this is just one of life's tests. Let's just chalk it up to one of life's tests. But in the beginning, I would say when that happens for a lot of people, especially based on the degree of intensity, they go through a state of shock. Like literally a state of like a deer in a headlights. Like I am just, it's coming at me and I don't know what to do. And they just sort of, they don't know how to run for safety. They don't know how to climb, to peace. They don't know how to get perspective. They don't know how to get, a good attitude or a mindset about the situation. They can then take, the guttural hit, the jab in between the ribs, the 1-2 punch, right. And then they can, it almost makes you incapable of functioning. You might feel that you can't function, that you feel petrified, scared, worried about what's going to happen next. So people then shut it down. They don't go to anybody. They don't know how to assimilate it. There's a concept in psychology called assimilation, which means when a new event occurs, you fit it into a specific category that you have experienced before. And so you know how to fit in this new information, if this makes sense, like a puzzle. What just happened, I know how to categorize that like a puzzle piece. I just snap that into place. It makes sense. So assimilating new knowledge means, like if you were going the speed limit and it was 30 miles an hour, and then they just brought it to 35, well, they just changed the speed limit. I can assimilate it, means blend it into what I know how to do, which means I know how to follow the speed limit. That's like assimilation of knowledge. When people then encounter this sort of malignant self-love with people who are basically in love with themselves and just, just they're enamored with how wonderful they are, like literally. It's strange when you see it, you're like, really? But not to judge, but what then can ensue or follow can be, a lot of combativeness, a lot of false accusations, a lot of hiding of the truth, a lot of concealing, I didn't check her out. I didn't call this person. I didn't go out with them, and they're just lying through their teeth, and they just feel, they don't feel any regret or remorse. They have a lack of empathy. To them, as long as it's getting them what they want, as long as they look good, that, oftentimes you will find then that, if something happens in their life where they're not looking good, i.e. they failed a test, they didn't get, a job, they, find out that they can't have children, they find these certain things, or, something happens, they might have lost a family member, or certain situations where you would think that they would want to come together, share the story, lean on you for honest human support. They do not like to feel human. And it's different from just like, well, I need to ask for help. Like, I don't know how to phrase it. They just feel that they don't need to confide or share this because this could put them on the level with others. They could be viewed as human, versus, this sort of more human than human, this sort of superhuman, superior perspective that you have of them. They don't want to shatter that superiority that they feel that they need to have over others and always sort of have reflected back to them. They want to have reflected that back. And this is different from being like a leader and a follower. We're talking about feeling like I am better than, and so I have the right to, treat you with disrespect. You are just a child, so I can talk down to you. You're just a woman, I can do this. You're just a man, I can do that. You're just, you're from this part of the town, I can do this. You're from that type of job, I can do that. So all these assumptions that they feel that they can just, hurt people and get away with it, not have to keep a check and balances or apologize. So basically it's because really they have, just a malignant self-love. They love themselves to the exclusions of others. And it's a very superficial. It's also very sad, but you don't want to pity them, feel sorry, set yourself back with trying to feel sorry for them, or pity them, because you have empathy, you can realize, that those are their issues. You are not responsible for saying, yeah, you hurt me, but let's work on this. becomes self-sabotaging. That becomes self-sacrificing and true altruistic for the situation. You end up giving away your power. You end up giving away your I am. You end up giving away your values. You end up, not representing the best for yourself when you have to be responsible and accountable for representing, your self-respect. You have to need to be able to stand up for yourself and then articulate it. That is not true. We're not going to put up with this, and handle things, but it's difficult if the emotions are overriding the logic and get you into that fear state where, I think a lot of people, they then believe the narcissist. You're right. They believe the false accusations. This, then begins the gaslighting and brainwashing. They begin to take the word of the narcissist to trump basically their own. It overrides their own instinct, their own values, their own I am, their own sense of self-protection, their own sense of right or wrong. They then feel guilty, and then shut down. And then they begin, well, maybe I am a horrible person. Maybe I am unlovable. Maybe I am despicable. Maybe I am worthy of this mistreatment. Maybe, and they just, I think, and then they numb themselves out and just take it and then take the hurt. And they end up having vast amounts of hurt, vast amounts of suffering, to the point of just not being able to function, a crippling, wounding relationship, just complete, mixing up of your thoughts to the point where, you're unable to see clearly and get perspective. So you need to withdraw, from that relationship. But the problem is that sometimes you can be married to these people, you can be working with these people can be your family members, your community, and you can't oftentimes get away. So you can be then chronically exposed to this maladaptive mistreatment, and then start to not being able to defend and protect yourself. You then have an experience called learned helplessness, as well as what I feel is a learned hopelessness. Learned helplessness, which basically is just that you've learned to be helpless. You've taken the narcissist as authority over you, that they are right, and you're believing then the projections. You just become an open receptacle for their negative projections, their negative energy, because your guard is down. It can be so intense, the projection, and with such narcissistic rage that it becomes difficult to stand up to. I mean, this poor individual, she had all sorts of lies and false accusations. You hit me, you did this, you did that, and nothing to the sort. And these are very horrific lies to tangle with the law and to lie about somebody's behavior. I mean, this is things that can, if gone to trial, and gone to court, that you can result in jail time. Can you imagine lying and putting somebody in that situation? I mean, I can't even imagine. I mean, I can't, the ruthlessness is just really what I have a passion to help people who have been through that situation. I mean, we're talking about that degree of shock, that if someone could falsely accuse you of hitting them, a man hitting a woman, that is, you can be arrested for, you can have a criminal record for something that you never even committed. I mean, can you imagine? This has happened. This is a horrific thing to be presented with in your life. I mean, where do you go from there? I mean, that is just horrific. Do you see how difficult it can be to pull yourself together? Where you just feel like crying, bawling. You don't even know where to start. How do you even redeem yourself? How do you get the proof? All of a sudden, from someone who is supposed to love you, this is what they do. This ain't jiving. Sorry, but this ain't gonna fly. You have to be really, once you kind of go through that surge of emotions, you have to see it for what it is, which is high-level manipulation. it is a tactic and ploy of manipulation. When someone is lying to that pathology, and tangling with the law, falsely accusing. We had another viewer, and I think it was her daughter, who did something similar. I'll have to go back through the comments, but a similar thing. Oh yeah, this is it. Her daughter would say, if you do this, well, and she has epilepsy, and she was going to say, you put me into an epileptic seizure, and I'm going to fake my seizures to the doctor and have to be hospitalized, and you're going to have to pay the bill. Do you see how threatening that is? Do you see how manipulative? I mean, can you imagine lying to the doctors and faking a seizure? I mean, this is what these people do. You know, they love themselves to their own ends, whether it's getting money, whether it's having a place to live, you know, intimacy, food. I mean, it just does not compute. This is the ends that these people will go to. So I want you to understand that this is not your average Joe or average Sally. These people have issues, and you don't need to be subjected to this, and it might really hurt you to have to sever and pull back. But, you know, when you pull back, you're going to be gaining more. When you pull back, you're going to be gaining more. So even though it feels like a loss, even though it feels like you're losing a love of your life, you know, or your family, or your job, or your community, or whatever it is, realize that, and this might be sort of a difficult thing to absorb and accept, but perhaps you have to realize that you really don't lose. You know, you are gaining. You are gaining perspective. You are gaining self-respect. You are gaining self-esteem. You are gaining understanding. You are gaining boundaries and standards. So when you pull back, you are actually going into the positive. Even though it hurts, even though you might have had a lot of love for them, or, you know, it seems illogical. Sometimes you have to then realize that it's all going to work out, but you have to stay. You have to have faith and belief and keep your eye on your goal and do whatever it takes. You know, whether your goal might just be to be at peace. I mean, this might be a simple goal. We don't have to talk about, you know, having a life mission statement. We're talking about having very simple, clear-cut goals moving forward that you can, you know, keep focused on and make sure that all your behaviors lead to that chief aim, you know, and to gain self-respect, to gain and learn about people, learn how to be assertive, learn how to get representation, learn, you know, what good marriages are like, learn what good jobs are like, learn what good communities are like, what good boyfriend and girlfriend or whatever, you know, learn the healthy models and get a mentor. You know, I really believe, like in the book that I'm working on, it's important that you have a template, a mentor, something that you can look up to, an image of what you aspire to be, feel, have, and become. You know, what does it look like? What does it feel like? You know, your I am. What is your identity? What is your I am? I am whole. I am complete. I have self-respect. I have values. You know, I am strong. I have what it takes. I have what it takes. And you're not replying to them. You're speaking this to yourself. So do not step into the battle ring with these people. Do not give eye contact. Do not believe their lies. Do not take their false accusations. See them really as sort of having a battle within themselves, and you're sort of observing it. They're having a battle within themselves. It's their problem that they are projecting onto you. You know, it is really important that you understand that distinction and then begin to give yourself some relief despite the narcissist who wants you usually to suffer, who, you know, who has a sense of empathy and just feels that, well, you know, I can't help you with this, you know, and will, you know, violate and transgress your bonds or your commitment or your vows. But it's oftentimes based on a malignant self-love. It's your buddy, Peace and Harmony, with you here today. I hope the videos do help. Please share, subscribe, and join the new Peace and Harmony memberships for more great tools, videos, discussions, and support. Have Have a beautiful day. Thank you for sharing.